Number 7. Amy Locane. Amy Locane is a former actress who achieved mainstream success in the early 1990s, starring in films like Crybaby and School Ties, as well as in the first season of the primetime soap opera Melrose Place. Locane got engaged to businessman Mark Bovenizer in 2007, with whom she had 2 daughters. On June the 27th of 2010 in Montgomery, New Jersey, Locane was driving her car at 53 miles per hour in an area for which speed was restricted at 35. She crashed into a vehicle driven by Fred Seaman, who was traveling at 3 miles per hour as he'd made a left-hand turn in front of Locane to enter his driveway. Seaman's wife, 60-year-old Helene, was killed in the collision. Testing revealed that Locane's blood alcohol levels were almost 3 times over the legal limit. She was convicted of vehicular homicide and, in early 2013, ordered to serve only 3 years in prison, with a judge factoring the welfare of her children into his decision. After she was released from prison in 2015, her husband filed for divorce and the custody of their 2 children. A New Jersey Court of Appeals would subsequently review her initial sentence and deemed it to have been too lenient. Double jeopardy, the procedural defense by which a person can't be tried twice for the same crime, didn't apply because she'd already served her sentence and parole term. In September of 2020, she was resentenced to 8 years in prison, of which she'd have to serve a minimum of 6 before being eligible for parole. Number 6. Jacqueline McKee. Jacqueline McKee, an adult actress who performed as Foxy Jackie, was arrested in 2010 for assaulting her husband at their home in Memphis, Tennessee. Jacqueline, a woman in her late 20s, was no stranger to controversy and had made headlines about 2 years prior for filming adult content for her website in public places. It's believed that she and her husband Justin were in the process of getting a divorce when the man went to retrieve some belongings from their shared Cordova residence. The couple got into an argument and Jacqueline, who was texting at the time, shoved her phone into Justin's face. She then reportedly pushed the man, kicked him in the head, and scratched his back. The police arrived at the home and Jacqueline was taken away in handcuffs. She was charged with domestic assault, bodily harm, and later released from Shelby County Jail. Number 5. Cindy Taylor. Adult film actress Cindy Taylor, an inductee into the industry's Hall of Fame, was arrested in February of 2020 for beating up her boyfriend. The man awoke to find Taylor, better known to those familiar with her work as Jessie Jane, throwing away his medication. Earlier in the night, the couple had been sharing drinks at the address in Moore, Oklahoma. The argument escalated after he confronted her. Taylor would later claim that she'd flown into a fit of rage because her boyfriend had actually been taking oral anabolic steroids. The police responded to a call of domestic disturbance and found them in the driveway. Taylor had violently attacked her boyfriend, whose left eye had been swollen shut and who was bleeding from a deep bite mark on his hand. She told officers that the man had initiated the physical altercation by grabbing her by the neck and throwing her in a wall. She didn't, however, have any injuries, and the police found her story questionable. Taylor was arrested and charged with domestic violence, but has since been released. Number 4. Molly Fitzgerald. In December of 2019, actress Molly Fitzgerald was arrested in Olathe, Kansas, and charged with second-degree murder for fatally stabbing her mother, 68-year-old Patricia. Molly, aged 38, had a minor role in Captain America: The First Avenger, a project for which she was also the director's assistant, and had additionally directed, produced, and starred in several other productions of a lower budget. The fatal stabbing occurred on December the 20th. Molly, who'd recently moved back in with her parents, would tell the authorities that Patricia had come at her with the knife and that she'd acted in self-defense. Once she'd taken control of the knife, Molly claimed that she was forced to stab Patricia because she kept trying to take it from her. It was a version of events seemingly unsupported by the post-mortem examination. Patricia, who had been stabbed 4 times in the back, also had defensive injuries in the form of cuts on both her hands, and her thumb had nearly been sliced off. There was also bruising on her face and around her neck, suggesting attempted strangulation. Molly chose to act as her own attorney in the matter, and her trial is ongoing, as is the investigation, which may produce further revelations into why she'd killed her mother. Number 3. Tucker Reed. in 2018, Aileen Tucker Moore Reid starred in an independent horror film called From the Dark, under the name Wynn Reid. A scene showed her character, Valerie Faust, shooting someone dead at a remote Oregon property. It turned out to be a grim example of art imitating real-life events, as the day after wrapping up, Reid was arrested for fatally shooting her uncle at her parents' home in Oregon. The incident dated back to a few years prior, and the studio claimed to have been unaware of Reid's legal problems right up to the point that she was officially arrested and charged. Producers argued that a low budget hadn't allowed for background checks. On July the 26th of 2016, Reid was meeting with her mother and grandmother, as well as a notary, over a property dispute with her maternal uncle, Shane Moore. He'd allegedly been pressuring Reid's grandmother into signing a deed, something that the actress and her mother didn't want her to do. The man had reportedly assaulted Reid in 2015, and she'd obtained a restraining order against him. Within roughly 10 seconds of arriving at the home, Moore was shot dead by Reid. She was charged with first and second-degree manslaughter, but her mother stated that she'd acted in self-defense. Reid was bailed out and went on to act in From the Dark under a modified name. At some point leading up to her 2018 arrest, the authorities managed to obtain footage from Reid's cell phone that they hadn't been able to recover during the initial investigation. It showed Moore through a window heading towards the front door and an enraged Reid shouting for someone to grab a gun. As her mother confronted him, Reid, with her cell phone still in hand and without warning, shot Moore in the chest. A gunshot was heard in the audio, but the footage only showed the aftermath of Moore bleeding in the driveway. As panic overtook the women, a sobbing Reid was heard claiming that she'd merely meant to fire a warning shot and scare him. It was based on the footage that the actress was formally charged and subsequently sentenced to 6 years and 3 months after a 2020 deal in which she pleaded guilty to second-degree manslaughter. Earlier that same year, she'd been charged with supplying contraband and unlawfully possessing heroin while housed at the Jackson County Jail. Today's topic was requested by Carlo Giorgio. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Felicia Pearson. Prior to her breakout and critically acclaimed performance in The Wire, a series in which she appeared from 2004 to 2008, Baltimore woman Felicia Pearson had had a troublesome past. Her mother was a crack addict who continued to abuse the drug while pregnant. Pearson was born severely underdeveloped and wasn't expected to live. She beat the odds and survived, but as a youth became involved with drugs as a dealer. In her late teens, Pearson was convicted of second-degree murder for fatally shooting teenager Okaya Tuma and was sentenced to 2 8-year terms. She was released in 2000 and several years later was introduced to the producers and writers of The Wire by Michael K. Williams, who played Omar Little. Pearson had met him at a Baltimore club. She went on to play the semi-fictional character of Felicia Snoop Pearson, and renowned novelist Stephen King would refer to her performance as perhaps the most terrifying female villain to ever appear in a television series. The role launched her acting career, which would include appearances in various hip-hop music videos, roles in Spike Lee films, and appearances on the 8th and 9th seasons of reality show Love and Hip Hop New York. Unfortunately, Pearson eventually fell back into her old ways. She and several others were arrested for drug offenses in March of 2011, following a DEA operation that resulted in the raid of her Baltimore home. In August, she pleaded guilty to the charges and was given a suspended 7-year prison term. Number 1. Aubrey Gold. From 2015 to 2018, American adult film actress Lauren Wombles, who performed as Aubrey Gold, appeared in dozens of adult films, and once she ended her career, she amassed a lengthy criminal record, mostly relating to drug offenses. However, in the summer of 2020, Wombles would face more serious charges in connection to the murder of Alabama man Raul Ambriz Guillen, aged 51. He was found buried in a shallow grave in Florida after being declared missing by his daughter since July the 4th. Her reports indicated that he'd called his ex-wife to let her know that he was in the company of dangerous people and that he needed to find a way out of the situation. He asked his ex for money, but she couldn't help him as she was in the process of moving at the time. Guillen had last been seen at the Graceville home of Jeremy Odell Peters, where he'd met with 23-year-old Wombles and her boyfriend, William Shane Parker, aged 35. The complex multi-county, two-state investigation that ensued could trace its inception to early May in Alabama. An unnamed woman who was roommates with Guillen went to the sheriff's office in Jackson County to report that she'd been abused by Parker. She would later state that she believed Guillen had been murdered but was unable to prove it. The connection was made, thus the authorities in Florida and Alabama collaborated in identifying Peters, Parker, and Wombles as suspects. Police got a warrant to search Peters' residence and a second home, in both of which they found evidence of murder. They then used cadaver dogs and traced Guillen's remains to a gravesite in the northeast of Holmes County. He died from a single gunshot wound to the back of the head. Parker was charged with open count of murder, Wombles with being a principal to murder, and Peters was charged as an accessory. Their trials are ongoing, as is the investigation, which could eventually produce more arrests. Thanks for watching. Who would you like to play you in a movie about your life? Let us know in the comments section below.